Welcome to 60 Minutes with a Woman, the podcast where we sit down with remarkable women. In each episode, we dive into their journey, the challenges, the triumph, and the lessons that shape them. Get ready for raw conversations, inspiring stories, and actionable insights to fuel your own success. Tune in because every woman's story deserves to be heard. Welcome to 60 Minutes with a Woman, the podcast where we sit with remarkable women, we listen to their story, we share their wisdom, and we celebrate their impacts. Today, again, we have an incredible guest, Maria Moreno. Welcome, Maria.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
It's a pleasure. I'm very excited today because we are going to talk about a topic that matters enormously to me. We're going to talk about the most powerful, quiet, and enduring forces in the world, mothers. So let me start by introducing you. Maria, you are the founder of Mindful Mother, a transformative company that helps moms free themselves from the constant overwhelm and burnout associated with lack of sleep, constant distraction, disorganization, and endless to-do lists. You help mothers create a life of balance, serenity, freedom, and rest. You assist them with sleep training and life coaching. Your program helps mothers before pregnancy, during pregnancy, and postpartum. You empower them and help them regain positive mindsets. Welcome again to 60 Minutes with a Woman, and thank you for being here with us. I want to start by asking you a little more about who you are, what environment did you grow up with, and what were your early influences?
So once again, thank you for having me here. And well, I am originally born in Colombia, Bogota. And I moved to the United States now 25 years ago, when I was 7. So I was raised here. And but my parents made sure that my household was still like all the Colombian culture overall. We were not allowed to speak English because my parents were making sure that we never lost that touch and lost our language. And then growing up here, I was a very quiet kid. I did struggle in school, and now turning 30, I got diagnosed with ADHD and completely understood why I was such a horrible test taker, and why it was hard for me to be organized and all of the above. And it was it's a blessing in disguise, to be quite honest with you, especially getting diagnosed. I'm like, this is amazing.
You finally understand.
Yeah, I finally understand my brain. But yeah, growing up with ADHD and being undiagnosed was definitely very challenging. And growing up, I've always been very empathetic with everybody around me, and I noticed that I loved working with kids. I loved working with families. And since I was a 6th grader, I would volunteer for the library and work with kindergarteners. And, I've worked with kids for over 15 years now. And, from there, I went to school to become a teacher. And I got my associates in early education. Then I got my bachelor's and my master's degree in art education. And I loved being in the classroom. I was able to, see the beautiful lives of kids and how much beauty there is to it. And working with them was amazing. And I've worked with kids with autism, with ADHD, with different disabilities. And I loved it, every single minute of it. And then from there, I became a mom 4 years ago. And that is when I became a pediatric sleep consultant. But, growing up, I realized the connection that I always had with kids, and how amazing it is to be able to work with them and give them love and give them support and be able to help them out. And all of these different experiences helped me shape who I am today. And, seeing my parents come from Colombia to here and seeing the immigration life and growing up with not knowing the language and then growing up and starting to learn the language and, understand and see different cultures has been an absolute blessing. Um, and so, yeah, that is basically my background. I've been living here. Now I live in Miami, but I lived in Broward County for those that know about Florida. So yes, the Alligator Valley over here.
That must have been a cultural shock between Bogota and then.
I can still, to be honest with you, I can still remember. I can still remember those thoughts when I was 7 years old, and I can still remember being in that apartment. I would wake up and be like, "Oh my God, I'm back home. I'm back home," and I'm like,
Still here.
still here. Go from our apartment in Bogota to living with my cousins. Then they had a 2-bedroom apartment, and we were living. 2 families were living there. And, thankfully my parents worked really hard and they got us our own apartment, probably in a few months. And seeing how hard they worked, being able to provide us the life that they gave us. Obviously, growing up, we didn't understand it, and it was frustrating. Like a lot of us, we don't understand. We don't see the struggles until we become adults, until we become parents, and then we're like, oh my God, my poor parents. And here I was with the teenager with an attitude.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, all of those experiences and everything that I've been able to see and learn from my family, from my parents, has been life changing.
It's the story of a lot of immigrants. Indeed, we don't realize it because we feel sometimes that we've been taken away from home, and at the same time that we are underrepresented in certain communities or maybe have less resources that what locals might have. But then the sacrifice and the struggle is absolutely understood in adulthood when you realize the opportunities and the privilege it is to be where you are. I'm glad you were able to make this realization. And you said you were a teacher. Do you want to tell us a little more about how your teaching years were?
Oh my goodness. They were great. Originally I thought I wanted to be an elementary teacher because I love the little ones. They're super cute. And as I did my first interview, I can still remember, I haven't even graduated then that I got my first interview. And when I got the call back, they were like, hey, we want to actually give you a second interview, but for middle school. I was like, for middle school? Why would I want to teach middle schoolers? Those preteens. And they were like, no, it's just that we feel like your personality fits them better. So I was like, you know what? Obviously, first time, like first job, and they want to give it to me already. Like, who's going to say no, right? What 20-year-old is not going to be saying no to their dream job, right? And I still remember like that, especially my first year was so magical. I taught 6th graders mostly. And I had my whole classroom was all rainbow and just I made paper mache and I just decorated in a way that it was just magical overall. And and I still talk to some of those kids, and when I have run into them, they're like, Miss Moreno, is that you? And I turn around, I'm like, yes. And of course, they have changed so much from being, 12-year-olds to adulthood. And they're like, oh, you were my first art teacher. I still draw those cubes that you taught us how to do. And I start laughing because I'm like, oh my goodness, it is wild.
Yes. That's beautiful to realize that you had such an important impact in their lives. That's a true reward.
Yeah. It really is, especially in that age range. And then I went taught middle school for a couple of years as well. And I love the teenagers and the preteens. My favorite is pre-teenagers, and I feel one of the reasons why I love teaching that age is because it is the most crucial and most important part emotionally.
Yes.
Growing up, and we all forget that part, and that is where we get our insecurities. And so that was, it was just colorful. I was able to get the kids out of their comfort zone and understand that you were not born with talents. You make your talents, you learn your talents. And these kids, like I said, they still reach out to me or they bump into me and they still remember me because I was able to give them that safe zone. And it's definitely a deep passion of mine to be able to work with families and with kids overall, and just teaching, it's just a very nice, rewarding job.
I can hear it in your voice that it was a very memorable moment for you because of the impact you had on human lives overall, right? It was heartfelt from you. It's you were so you taught during how long?
I taught for 5 years. I've worked with families for over 15 years, because before that, as soon as I graduated high school, I started working in summer camps and after school programs because, like I said, I've always loved kids. And then back then, I actually taught with kindergarteners and first graders. It seems like I really like to challenge myself because those ages tend to be very challenging. And I was maybe a 19-year-old taking care of like 25 kindergarteners.
Yes.
And but it was amazing. It was an amazing experience because I was able to, you know, uh, get them lined up like little ducklings, be behind me, teach them how to play safe, how to be kind to each other. And um and that is just incredible to be able to have that experience. And um but yeah, in an actual classroom as the main teacher, I've worked 5 years. My second year in education, they opened up a new charter school and they promoted me the first year. I didn't even finish my first year in teaching, and they were already promoting me to be head department in all electives. And I was actually interviewing teachers that had more experience than me to be part of my program. So that was a pretty awesome experience as well. And I was able to actually open up this school with a curriculum and this program that made the school a more creative place to be in.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, thank you very much for all you did. So, what pivotal moment made you decide to leave the profession and then start your own business?
Um, so there's a lot of different points there. And before motherhood, that was literally my dream job. Um, and then I became a mom. I actually during the pandemic, I got pregnant, and then I had a miscarriage early in the pregnancy. And even though I shared this loss with the school, and then I told them that I was pregnant again. And and then from there, I told them that I had gestational diabetes and that the same day that I found out that I had gestational diabetes was the same day that I found out that the baby actually had VSD, which is little holes in the heart. And they basically told me, you either put in your 2 weeks or you're out, you're fired. And that was very hard because, the school would accommodate other teachers. But when it came to me, I guess because I was in the art or because I was elective, we usually elective teachers tend to be the bottom. Um, and I decided to put in my 2 weeks because I did not want to, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, we didn't even know what's going on or how to manage it, what could affect or not affect. It was just a wild time.
I'm surprised the school wasn't closed.
Yeah, it was actually, like when they first restarted opening the school, right? And there was like only like 10 kids maybe or something like that. Like, but in my classroom, it was gonna be like 25 kids.
And they knew you went through a miscarriage and everything prior, so that's really on their part. Yeah. Yeah.
And so when they did that, I was like, here's my 2 weeks. Here's my resignation letter. Because I was not going to expose my baby's life and my health to work in a school or just in a system that's not going to take care of their people. And so yeah, that is how I had to step out. Another reason why I literally after I had my rainbow baby, I actually had my dream job, like back then, like opportunity. But as I'm sitting there in the main office, I hear two teachers talking to the police officer, and one of the first things that they asked was, "Oh my God, is it true that there was an active shooting in blah 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 high school?" And I just looked and I was like, "Nope."
All right. That would do it. Goodbye.
Yeah. And thankfully there wasn't, but just the fact that it's such a
The thought of endangering yourself. Yes.
and having, this little one that was just almost 2, and I just sat there and kind of like, I no, I can't. I can't imagine going through that, because being in the school system for those 5 years, we did have a couple of scares, and being in that, especially in that age range, that is very, I guess, popular per se to have those incidents to happen. I didn't feel safe, and even though it was literally the dream job that I've always wanted, I decided to turn it down because it was just not worth that type of risk, which is unfortunate, because I love the kids. The kids are what makes it worth it. But having my own, maybe if I was single, if I had, was single and I didn't have anybody else to count on me, I probably would have taken it in a heartbeat. But that was another reason why I just decided to just step back.
It's such a tragedy that this is just common knowledge and something teacher have to be on the lookout for actual shootings or even have to give up on their career based on their safety. And there is also a lot of responsibility in your ability to protect the children you're caring for. Um, that needs a lot of training, and training to face such an aggression is something that offsets completely your purpose of educating children and being in a safe environment, and being a safe space where children can be a parent can drop their children and know that they're going to be okay while they're at work. It's just it's so the contradiction and contrast is so powerful that I don't understand how we haven't gone through we haven't found a solution, and we haven't gone through the real meaty part of the issue, and tackled it where it should be tackled. And plus, once again, we're losing valuable teachers who adore what they do and do it for a greater purpose, but obviously not at the risk of their own lives, or not, having leaving their children orphans.
Yeah.
It makes absolute sense. I want to thank you for opening up and sharing on your experience there. I can only imagine the debate you had, the inside debate you had with yourself on what's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So thank you very, very much for opening up on that. And so you decided to, this was a pivotal moment, and you decided to start your own company after that, right?
So funny you say that, because I quit and I didn't really have a backup. I said, I was probably gonna go back into teaching. With that in mind, the salary is very low, so you can't really do much with the salary to top it off. And so I decided to, my husband and I actually pre-planned to save up enough to be able to, for me to be a stay-at-home mom, at least the first year that my daughter was born.
Mm-hmm.
And my daughter was a very bad sleeper. And from
Because
there,
she had reflux as well, right? On top of having, like you mentioned, a little hole in her heart, which is terrible news. Can you only imagine how you handled that news? This is terrifying.
yeah, that day, I can. literally like it was yesterday. It was very terrifying because not only it was like a package this thick of how to take care of yourself when you have gestational diabetes. I was very angry with my body. Because I'm here like, I'm eating healthy, I'm skinny. I don't understand why in the world I'm getting gestational diabetes. I've been taking care of myself. I was very, very upset with myself and my body. And then that same day, I still remember the nurse coming in and out 3 times of the room and not knowing what was going on with the baby because, usually they don't do that. They don't do that. And it was during the pandemic days, meaning that I was by myself in those doctor's offices. My husband was not able to be there with me. Nobody was.
Yeah.
And just sitting there, not knowing what was going on until one of the doctors came in and it was like, hey, your daughter has VSD and that means that she has a, hole in her heart. That means that you're going to be looking to talk to a cardiologist. And, with so much information going on and with the miscarriage, I actually ended up with postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety. And then you add on to the social anxiety that kicked in during COVID. A lot was just to just be dumped on you in just one day. And I remember getting into the car and I just started crying. And my husband looks at me and he says, it's okay. After you have the baby, you can have your chocolate chip cookies again. And I'm just there looking at this man like, I'm not crying because of chocolate chip cookies.
Okay.
And then, I explained to him what was going on and what happened, but he was like, oh, okay. Because I guess before going in, I was like, oh, I really want my chocolate chip cookies. It sucks that I can't have it anymore, And it was just so many like emotional hits left and right, mental, like, exhaustion and being by yourself in the pandemic because nobody can come and like visit you.
And the first year, we didn't know how bad it was.
I can only imagine those women that had to give birth the first year because they couldn't even have their spouse in there with them. They were by themselves the whole time. And and so this little one was born, and the first month of the first week of life, she actually had to be in NICU for those 7 days because she had jaundice and spherocytosis. And the spherocytosis is that the blood cells, instead of looking like little donuts, they're actual spheres, and the body itself is like attacking the blood cells. And so she was there for 7 days. And once again, the mom guilt kicked in, and I felt like it was my fault. When in reality, no, you don't have control over that. You don't even have control over the gestational diabetes because it's all because of the placenta. And so that night that I breastfed her, she put her to sleep, and suddenly we hear this baby. We run into the room. She was choking. We didn't know what was going on. We didn't know what she was choking on. She literally only has 1-2 months of life in this world. We don't understand how she's choking. My husband is trying to do CPR. I'm calling 911. And it turned out that she had reflux. And the thing is, like, most babies tend to spit up.
Mm-hmm.
Mine didn't. Mine would literally choke on her own spit up. And from there, you have to go through a specific diet. So I went from having a crazy diet of the gestational diabetes and a crazy diet because my baby had allergies. Of what? Nobody knows until this day. We still don't know what she had allergies to that would cause that reflux to be that bad. And yeah, if you have a reflux baby, you have to hold them up after every feed. They say 30 to 40 minutes. I will have to hold her between an hour and a half, because every single time you put her down, everything will come right up. And so she got used to sleeping in our arms. She got used to falling asleep in our arms. And so when it came to the point that she was technically able to sleep through the night, she wasn't. She was sleeping. She would wake up maybe 45 to an hour every night, every single, almost 8 times a night. Easily she would wake up. And I would look at the clock and it was like super blurry. And that is when that 6 months later, that is when the pediatrician was like, hey, you should hire a sleep consultant. And I'm here looking at this man kind of like, what is a sleep consultant? And how come this was not knowledge to me beforehand? And yeah, long story short, um, I started the sleep training. 3 nights later, the baby's sleeping through the whole night. I saw it was a huge improvement in my mental health and my emotional health. I was no longer having adult tantrums, um, no longer having rage. And then finally pandemic kind of like finished and we started able to socialize more and talking to other moms that were also struggling with their kids sleeping. And so I would help them with what I learned with mine. And that's when they were like, hey, Maria, you should get certified. You should do this for a living. And that is how I started what I do now.
So, because of COVID, you also didn't have the support you expected to have while having a child, right? Regarding the demands of taking care of a newborn. Um, so isolation. A lot of women, in spite of being, facing COVID or not, are in this situation. The isolation is number one issue for every mother giving birth. They have this picture of them giving birth and having this blissful relationship with their babies once home, and then all of that only to find that they are very alone. Sometimes your partner does not understand what you're going through, and your family cannot be there 24/7. And I just want to add on that sleep deprivation, right, that we associate with motherhood altogether and we brush off as being something completely normal. I want to add to that it's not getting enough sleep drains your mental abilities, puts your physical health at risk. Inadequate sleep comes with a number of health problems, from weight gain to a weakened immune system, memory loss, and mood swings. And you can also experience drowsiness, which potentially can lead to accidents. Right. And this includes, we're talking sometimes about driving a car and having the side effect of a drunk driver.
Correct.
Just because you're sleep deprived. So this is not something that should be taken lightly. And there is not enough information and not enough awareness about how important it is for a mother who had a basically physical trauma happen to her body, because this is what pregnancy is, as once again blissful as it sounds, and then not sleeping for the next 6 months, sometimes, is really putting the mother's health at risk very seriously. I can only imagine how you felt at that moment and how lost you must have felt because of the lack, once again, of awareness around it, and the fact that you didn't leave the hospital with a booklet telling you about the options that are out there, what you can do, and what's available for you. So it's really, once again, terrifying, adding on top the fact that your little one was sick. It's just, I can only imagine. And this can break relationships as well, which I'm very glad that you were able to, work together on it and be strong as a couple. It's very important. I think a lot of couple counseling should be also recommended to, new parents, because it's demanding on your relationship. And this is an actual fact. Um, I wanted to ask you, why do you think that in society, we're not more aware of those things? And also, what was your understanding of what motherhood was before? And then what was your understanding of what motherhood is after having a child? And now you can compare also the information that's out there versus the one you actually received prior to giving birth.
Well, first of all, thank you for pointing out how it does really affect you. It is tremendous. It's just like eating. Sleep needs to be as important as you eating, right? And it's crazy how the society just brushes it off and shames moms and makes you feel guilty for a simple care. It's like self-care, because it's at the end of the day, it's self-care, right? And you know, it's crazy because you don't really want to listen to a lot of advice. you don't really want to believe a lot of things that you hear. And one of the first things that somebody told me, another mom told me, she was like, "Oh, you're going to lose a lot of friends once you become a mom, like once the baby's out." And I was like, "No, my friends are my friends. They're awesome. They love kids. Most of them are teachers, you know?" And the reality was that, yeah, you lose a lot of friends. Because especially if they're not moms, they take it personal. They take the fact that you don't text them right away, or just simply they have this, a lot of friends and family have an excuse of like, "Oh, I didn't want to text you because they didn't want to bother you," and it's like it's a simple text. I don't text you because I'm dealing with a newborn. They're waking up every 2 hours to feed. I'm feeding them. I had my C-section, an emergency C-section to be more exact. And I'm just trying to survive the day. A simple text message like, "Hey, Maria, how are you doing?" It's more than enough to be able to like, hey, somebody out there is actually like worried about me, you know?
Yes.
And during the pandemic, I was blessed the fact that my mom took 2 weeks off and she was able to stay with me those 2 weeks. And my husband during the pandemic, he was actually, well, he had to be here at home. So, but we had to live two different lives. He had to be up all night and I had to be up all day because of the reflux. And we weren't sure, if the baby can die on us because of it. Right. It was such a huge fear. And, in my mind, I guess it was a typical, especially like the family, Hispanic family coming along and, having your cousins and having your friends come by and how can I help you? And here's like, some meals so that you don't have to worry about that. And the pandemic took all of that away, even if could have been a
Yes.
opportunity. Um, but having my second child not being in pandemic, it was the same thing. It was the same thing. And it's unfortunate because a lot of us, um, we need that type of support. Um, we all need it, and society today tells you don't, that you should be able to do it by yourself. And the reality is that motherhood should not be doing it by yourself, and motherhood should not be so lonely, and you should have some type of support system to be able to help. And I was, very blessed the fact that I have a husband that is my partner, is my friend and is my partner. And we actually went through therapy before we got pregnant because we wanted to make sure that we had a communication that that will work for us.
That was a wise move.
hmm and a lot of couples think that you have to be in problems for you to be in therapy or counseling or coaching overall. But in reality, when you are in the prime of your relationship, that should be the best time because that way you are more willing to understand the other person's.
Absolutely. You're talking while you're on good term. Once again, you have had time to rest, understand, listen when you're in the actual um action of being a parent. Very often you're impaired by once again, sleep deprivation, a lot of hormones kicking in, and just a lifestyle being wrecked altogether. So it's very difficult to stay emotionally mature when you don't feel safe in a space because you have never experienced that, so you're in survival mode
Yeah.
very much, and this is not the right moment to have a to go in therapy. So shout out to you for finding out prior that this would be a good thing to do. I heard you speaking about so we were talking about the expectations, right, prior to have children, and then your realizations after having your baby. I heard you mentioning you didn't listen to people. So there is isolation that you realized, a lot of lack of awareness because just information wasn't provided to you. But you pointed out another thing that I picked on right now. It's mother's guilt of, prioritizing herself. Do you want to tell me more about that?
Yeah. So mom guilt is very real and it's not talked about because it's shameful. It can be very embarrassing and it can be very isolating feeling, right? Because, the expectation of motherhood is that you're supposed to be happy, the expectation of motherhood is that you're supposed to have a connection with the baby. The expectation of motherhood is that you're supposed to um, be, be joyful and look at your baby and be in love with the baby. Um, and for most of us, that is not the reality. And we have a lot of guilt because supposedly if you're not happy that you're a mom, you're a bad mom. That's not the reality. Funny enough, my husband and I were talking about that last night, and it was kind of like he was hearing a podcast of two moms, and the the daughter, an adult daughter, was like, "Hey, what was the best time of your motherhood for you?" And the mom looks at her and is like, "When you moved out." And she was like, "Oh my god!" And it was kind of like the mom should not feel any shame of that, because the reality is like, I love you because you're my child, right? Because I'm your mom. But did I want to have kids, or did I like having kids? No, like that's, and we shouldn't feel ashamed of saying things like that, because at the end of the day, you created a good human, you loved the child, became a good adult, and that's how it went, right?
I
And
see.
the
Yeah.
mom guilt, um, it's such a feeling that I don't think it really goes away, to be quite honest, because, having my 97-year-old grandma, um, when she was alive, she had Alzheimer's, and she will still have some mom guilt going on in her brain, about my mom being 7 years old. And she was like, "Oh my God, who's going to pick her up?" And you're like, wow, it's crazy how internally your mom guilt doesn't go away, because, I mean, I'm pretty sure there are some women that don't have it. Um, but I'm pretty sure it's because of some type of trauma. But in reality, we all have it, we all get it. And it's just the way that you deal with it, right? And what tools do you have to be able to manage it? Because, society nowadays tells you, oh, well, if you take your kids to daycare, and there's somebody out there in the social world that's literally like social media world that's telling these moms that if you take your kids to daycare or to preschool, you're automatically traumatizing them. And, when I heard that, I wasn't thinking about my motherhood life coaching self or my educative self, or I was thinking of myself as a regular mom. And I looked at my husband, I'm like, "Oh my God, do you think like I'm a bad mom because I take my kids to preschool?" And he looks at me, he's like, "What are you talking about?" Like, he was like, "Didn't you were the one that even told me taking them to preschool actually helps them develop with their developmental stages, and it helps them, whatever, like, meet these things." And it's crazy how that mom guilt was brought into because of the mom shaming that I got, right? And then you have the other side, that the mom guilt of like, oh, I'm a stay-at-home mom, so I am not providing the family financially, and so you're
Yes.
constantly hearing you should be working, but you shouldn't be working. You should be at home raising your kids, but you should be, have a financial, be stable and successful. And you should be, you should look like this, like completely have your body restored by the 6 months. You should be having a clean house, an organized house. All of these crazy expectations, unrealistic expectations. And I say unrealistic because at the end of the day, everybody's family is different.
Hmm.
Every need is different. Every mother has their needs. That, for example, I have a friend that she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. That's what she wanted, right? I love being a mom. I love being around with my girls and things like that, but I like to have my time. I like to be able to work on me, on my business. I like to have my time. But I shouldn't be comparing myself to my friend that loves to be a stay-at-home mom and wants to be able to raise her kid 24/7. For me, I'm here, looking at her like, you haven't like gone crazy by this point with all the screaming and this. But that's just me and my personality, what I need and what I don't need. And that's what she needed to be able to feel good, you know? And that's what we all, as moms and as women, we need to try our best to stop comparing,
Absolutely.
to take away, to help take away that shame and that guilt, you know? because at the end of the day, like I said, mom guilt is real. Mom guilt doesn't really go away. And they tell you, oh, well, you feel scared or you feel like that because you're a good mom. That's literally what they tell you. Like, you know, you don't want to, you don't want to do something with your kids because you're scared. Oh, that makes you a good mom. Like, okay. Those, it's just crazy.
It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's absolutely crazy. I worked with a lot of mothers. I think I told you about that. And one thing that is true for every mother is that their lifestyle and their choice is to be respected.
Mm-hmm.
There is no right way of doing things. There is a common misconception of how things should be. And for the longest time, we were able to pretend as women because we live in a patriarchal society, and men were acting as providers. Nowadays, our needs are not the same, and we're still figuring things out. The truth is that as long as your baby is healthy, fed, happy, you're a good mom. You're doing the right thing. This is the most important. And you should take care of yourself as well as a mother because you're the pillar of the family. And we can see as much moms having different lifestyles and now having to cope with understanding what it means to be a modern mom, to mom having children later on and understand that it takes way more time to recover for your body. Very often I heard, I used to be so sexy in my 20s and 30s, and now look at me and I'm barely eating. Your body should not, your aesthetic should not be a priority right now. And it should be okay. And, the time for you to recover mentally, you shouldn't put more pressure on you to try to hit another goal.
Mm-hmm.
You just give life to a human being. Just give yourself a break. And I think there is also this clash with trying to be productive, right? We're waiting in Europe, you'll get a year off. So you understand this is just mentally established in your mind that you are going to take care of yourself for that year. You're not going to think about work. Mothers have to go back to work after 2 months. So they know they have to have it together prior to going back to work, right? So there is also this added pressure. And when you're a homemaker, a stay-at-home mom, then we see you as somebody who is having a easy, good time, which is also not true because it's a full-time job. And mom shaming moms, it's a little like woman not supporting woman in the industry or in society in general. We've been doing this to ourselves for the longest time. And it's once again, to me, that's my own opinion, is because we are in a patriarchal society and this divides enormously women and prevents us from embracing our femininity overall, right? One of the topic that really was difficult, regardless of is if I was helpful or not to mothers, was postpartum, because the expectations mother put on themselves is the only enemy they have, honestly. How did you cope with that? And how were you able to get out of it and communicate your needs when you were in it?
My first year was definitely the hardest ones, like many of us with our first child, right? Because we're learning how to be a mom. And everybody's expecting you to know what it is to be a mom. I still remember, like I said, I love my husband, and actually he's an amazing dad and amazing husband. Like, I can't complain. But he would do things that most men do, which is like, hey, like I'll ask him, hey, pack the diaper bag. And it was like kind of like a year later, he's like, oh, but I don't know what goes in the diaper bag. What do you mean you don't know what goes into the diaper bag? Like, why is it, it always falls on the mom of, do you know where the kid goes to school? Do you know the doctor's appointments? Do you know all of these things are all already expected for you to do that? And one of the biggest things, and I thank my mom for this, and is that even though it was extremely, oh my God, I can only imagine, I can still feel the knot in my throat too, how hard it was for me to tell my husband, you changed the first diaper.
Because you had to delegate. Yes.
Can you help me change the baby? And, thankfully he loved, he has always loved being a dad. He did have a hard time connecting, like most dads, and that's something that a lot of people don't talk about either, because they're supposed to have that connection, and in reality, most dads don't tend to until the kid actually has like some type of personality and they can relate more to the dad. And during the postpartum, one of the things is that I did make sure that my husband helped me with the task. And as my second postpartum came along, I decided to not do laundry when the baby was napping. I decided to nap. I decided to rest, even though I eagerly wanted to get up and do things and feel productive, because society tells you that you're supposed to be moving, you're supposed to be doing things, you're supposed to be accomplishing, whatever, laundry, dishes, yada, yada, yada. When we need to realize that when we are resting, we're also being productive.
Yes.
Whether it's you just laying in bed, whether it's you taking deep breaths, whether it's you actually sleeping. And I realized that after my sleep deprivation phase was such a huge hit and how much it affected me mentally and emotionally. And something that a lot of women don't know and a lot of people don't know is that postpartum is not 2 years, it's actually 7 years. And
I wasn't aware of that.
yeah,
7 years?
7 years, yes. And so, and crazy enough, talking to a psychiatrist, when I told her this, she was like, wow, that makes sense. And I'm like, what do you mean? She was like, yeah, because there's a lot of my patients that they will come in with depression, and their kids will only be 5 or 6. And I was like, most likely that was postpartum depression. They just never really dealt with it. And it just sparked off, more than, because at the end of the day, if you don't have support and if you're not resting, if you're not understanding how important it is to be mindful and to be present, you can easily lose yourself so fast.
Yes.
So fast. And I don't like feeling rage. I don't like feeling that annoying feeling towards my children. And being sleep deprived, that is what causes that feeling, at least for me. And one of the biggest things as a sleep consultant and as a motherhood life coach, I want to be able to help prevent is kids getting hurt by their caregivers and their moms or their caregivers hurting themselves. Because when you are not resting and when you're going through that postpartum stage and you're definitely not well rested, it can go dark really fast.
Yes.
Whether it is shaking the baby or, and if you look at the stats of how many moms end up actually committing suicide the first 6 months of life, it is very, very scary. And, And so knowing this information and being able to, I put what I have learned into practice for me to be able to actually help moms. And I want to give these tools to these moms that are struggling with all of this, because you shouldn't be doing it by yourself. You don't have to be doing it by yourself. And yes, most likely your in-laws, especially mother-in-laws or your own mom, would probably shame you for getting help, because of like, I even heard it from my cousin the other day. In my days, there was no such thing as postpartum depression and social anxiety. What is that? And it's kind of like,
especially in the Hispanic and community and immigrants in general. Yes.
Yeah. And that's huge. And when in reality it should be the opposite of like, hey, you know what? You're feeling down. Hey, you're feeling alone. Let me be with you. Let me help you. Let me help you fold the laundry. Let me, whatever, don't ask the mom what they need. If you see that there's a pile of laundry, just be like, hey, how do you want me to fold? Like, how is this folded? Or just fold it without them seeing, and then let them come to a surprise. Because at least me as a first-time mom, I didn't want anybody to touch anything. I didn't want anybody to help me. Because I didn't know. And the anxiety of being like fitting that mold of like the perfect mom and the perfect wife was so strong that it was just very hard for me to like step out of that. And then once I realized, especially with my second one, to stop caring, to put boundaries, and to understand that the most important thing is the people the two tiny little humans that are relying on me, because that is my responsibility. My responsibility is for myself and for the two little ones that came out of me, right? The rest of the world, their opinions should not matter.
Yes.
Their comments, their suggestions, their questioning, their whatever. You as a person, you get questioned all the time. As a woman, you double that, and as a mother, you triple that. And once you understand that's going to happen and you understand that that's happening, put your foot down, ask for help, and try to at least lower the volume to those comments, and understand that if your child is, like you said, happy, fed, healthy, you're doing a fantastic job.
Absolutely.
Even if you're giving them mac and cheese every night because you physically cannot do more at that moment, you're doing a fantastic job. That's all that really matters.
I absolutely agree with that, and this is what I was saying, that sometimes as a mom you are your worst enemy, and because of misconceptions, honestly, 100% it's not mom's fault. It's 100% what society has taught us, and this miracle being normal and natural, normalized, I'm going to say, by society, and it's postpartum need to be recognized as well by mothers first, because the problem is, if you hear it from somebody else, you're going to feel attacked. You're going to feel that it's a critic against you. You're going to feel that people maybe, exaggerate the situation. It's really important to keep your mind open to, maybe I'm on the edge. Maybe it is true, like you said, and be able to ask for help. Leave productivity, just throw it by the window altogether, and make sure that you're keeping yourself alive properly, more than alive, happy too. Once again, you're one of the pillar, you're the pillar of the family. You need to be, and your children need you, your husband needs you, or your wife needs you. You have to be mentally strong for yourself, and then after, your family will benefit from that.
Mm-hmm.
This is, you shouldn't deprive yourself of anything while being a mother. Once again, whatever benefits and positive you can get in your life will snowball directly to the closest people to you, knowing your children, once again, as well. And postpartum is, I love the fact that you also help. Now, going back to your program, and I really want to hear more about it, honestly, because I'm very curious of what sets you apart. Your program also coach mothers. So once again, we talked about it pre-pregnancy. So we are talking about being ready and having healthy habits. So when the baby comes, it's not a wreck, it's not out of control, and you are able, once again, to pinpoint few things that are going wrong, not the whole picture. That I love. I love. So do you want to tell us more about the whole program altogether and who it speaks to?
Yeah. So I created Mindful Mother overall because I realized that there's a huge lack of support.
Can I ask you just one thing? I love the name of your company. Why did you call it Mindful Mothers?
Mindful Mother was because in order for you to really, and I'm pretty sure most of us have already, you kind of like understand, well, at least I would think that we understand the purpose of being mindful. But we have lost that touch of being mindful, right? We're so stuck on the social media and what everybody thinks and whatever, the expectations, things like that. But once you become a mindful mother, you're able to enjoy your kids. You're able to enjoy maternity. You're able to enjoy even the tantrums. Yes, it can go that far. It could go that beautifully far. And so as I was looking through different names of how to call like my business, one of the things that came up was Mindful Mother. And, it just really resonated with the main mission and the goal that I wanted to end up giving to my clients.
That's beautiful. I love it. It sounds very different, and it says a lot about, once again, the program you offer. So let's dive into the program now.
As I was saying, like with I first just honestly just was gonna just focus on the postpartum and the sleep deprivation. And I have a younger sister, And she has always told me, oh, I don't want to be a mom. I don't want to be a mom. It's too scary. And it's not because she didn't want to have kids. It's because of the fear of what comes with motherhood, right? And what it is to have be responsible of an actual human being. And during that time that she was pregnant, I already started the program on, I guess, the pregnancy or and pre-pregnancy, because I was telling her kind of like, the mindset is one of the biggest things, right? So if you're going to be scared and anxious all the time, once the kid comes, it's only going to get worse because of the hormonal changes and how the world really is, right? But as soon as you start working on those fears, on those anxieties, and as you have these tools to be able to manage these situations, it becomes a nicer experience for you, right? And it's not as scary. And if it becomes scary or chaotic, you have the tools to be able to help you go through that emotion, right? Because overall, parenthood is not an easy. It's not easy at all. Um, but it's not impossible. Our ancestors did it. Our grandparents did it. Our parents did it. We're doing it, right? And I, I wanted to be able to have some type of resources for the women that don't know whether, like they want to be moms, but they're just too anxious to do it. And then during the pregnancy part, I had a hard time, not understanding the value of a lot of things, and not knowing to whom to talk to and not feel either a shame or guilt, through it. I wanted to be able to create that type of environment, and I want to take some of that pressure off the shoulders as well. Like, the baby registration, a lot of us tend to like really freak out not knowing what in the world you should and shouldn't buy and what you actually need, because at the end of the day, the baby world is like a huge marketing scheme of the things that they make you they make you think that you need, when in reality a lot of those things you don't even use. um and they're just plain expensive, and it can be actually life threatening. And so for me to be able to create a program that I can actually teach you, of the recalls and where to look at the recalls, and if it is dangerous for your baby, or just keeping it simple, usually tends to be the best trick, because marketing does a great job to tell you that you need a bunch of expensive things when you don't. And if I can redo it all again, there's a lot of different products that I wish I would not have gotten. That I'm very blessed that nothing happened to my babies, uh, because there's no regulations on that. And so I wanted to create, kind of like the 3 steps, um, programs of services to be able to help the different stages of motherhood overall, because we don't have those resources, we don't have those services, we don't have the type of help. And when I realized the lack of, I internally, I knew that I had to be able to give back to moms, because we deserve it, we need it. And
Yes.
and then from there, I branched out also with, the special needs, pediatric sleep consulting, as well, because that's another community that doesn't get enough support or real, honest type of support. And, nowadays everybody's trying to sell you things and sell you everything, and you don't even know what direction to go to. And if you're a new mom, it is extremely stressful and very overwhelming, and not knowing where to go, it is very, very scary, like very scary. So that's basically, the programs that I have built for Mindful Mother.
So there is a lot of guidance. There is companionship through the whole process. Obviously, you are well equipped to inform them about everything that's needed, doing reason being because once again you've been through it, but also because you've studied on the subject. So they know what to expect, they know what to purchase, how to get their house ready for a new baby, how to learn to communicate, how to develop a healthy routine for themselves and for the newborn. And then once the newborn is there, what is the next step of the program?
So I actually have a specific program that's for the new moms. That is with the life coaching and for the sleep consulting as well. And what I do is help you started um, from newborn stage, healthy sleeping habits. Um, because once you actually start that, the baby starts learning kind of like, oh, it's, you put on the swaddle, it's time to go to sleep. And so starting these healthy good habits, sleeping habits, later on you're not going to be struggling. Or if those regressions hit, you already have the tools to be able to handle those.
Yes.
And that way you're not stuck of where kind of like where I was, that was like so sleep deprived that I didn't even know what time it was because it was so blurry. My vision was so blurry. And so I create that type of plan and that type of program to be able to fit you and your baby. So it's not a generic one. So that's something that also kind of like makes what I do different, because I want to be able to cater to your personality, to what you and your baby and your family needs. Because at the end of the day, no, not every kid is the same. Not every mom is the same. Not every family dynamic is the same. And so what may work for you may not work for somebody else. And I like to be able to work with you one-on-one and be able to create a community that you can have other moms that think like you, and you feel comfortable being able to go ahead and say whatever comes through your mind, because yes, we all have those intrusive thoughts. It is completely normal to have intrusive thoughts, as long as obviously you're not doing anything about them. um, but we all have those thoughts. And so I created the new mom program for that reason, to be able to give that type of resources.
What is your approach? Your approach when it comes to sleep training? Are you for swaddling, not swaddling?
So that's a great question. So for the swaddling, it depends on kind of like on the personality of the baby and what stage they're in, right? So I actually help the mom, like the parents, learn when to swaddle, how to swaddle, and when to stop swaddling. Because once the baby starts rolling over, they shouldn't be in a swaddle because they can easily suffocate. Um, and how the environment of sleep should be. My methods are scientifically like proven that they work. It's not the cry it out method. Though if you choose,
Can you repeat that? Wait, it's not the cry it out method,
correct.
right?
Yes.
Because I mean, a lot of newborn care specialists swear by that. It's not the one. So, what is the actual approach? That I'm curious. Wait, I just want to precise for those who don't know what cried out means for a child is basically letting your baby cry to sleep. It's himself or herself to sleep without intervention. It's just assuming that he will be exhausted from his own tantrum and then fall asleep. So this was I think used back a lot in probably early 2000, and then it just got discredited by the whole community. And you still have people who are very keen on using that methods, and then others that are completely against it. So
Yeah.
you are against it.
So I would like to make clear, like I respect it. Like in case that is because okay, do I give that as a recommendation? No. Because I, for one, would not been the mom that would be able to handle that, right? There are some moms that I have met that they have done that because they're so utterly so exhausted that they just don't know what else to do, that they just cannot handle it anymore, and that's the only way that they were able to do it. No shame in that. Like that's you do what works for you, right? Um, Me as a sleep consultant, I do not, unless the parent tells me like, hey, this is what I want to do. Okay, then I will try my best to help you and go through it. But just know that it's going to be very long nights.
We have to accompany our children to understand that they're in a safe space. This is really the communication we need to have with a newborn. Is your survival instinct is valid, my love, but the thing is, I can help you feel comfortable when I'm away because you're still safe. And this is really this translation of the action that has to be established. When you let the baby cry it out, once again, parents do whatever they want to do, but it's very traumatic for the baby. This has to be realized. Yes.
I personally, like I said, I personally cannot do that. I actually get chills down my back just hearing my kid cry. Um, I feel that, for example, at least for the cried out method overall, um, in case that parent got into that point that they want to hurt the child, I think it's better to put that method into play if that's the case, the extreme case of like not knowing, type of situation, like if they're in the crib, they're in a safe space. Um, but there are so much gentler methods that does not cause trauma for the parents or for the baby. Um, Even though there is no actual long research that can back the cried out method to be actual long-term traumatizing. But what I can tell you is that those moms that do not sleep train overall, doesn't matter what type of sleep training method you choose, the ones that do sleep train some type of method, shape, or form, their mental and their physical health is much better than the ones that are sleep deprived, right? And so I I like to evaluate the personality the of the parent and the baby, and then I give two different methods to see which one they're most comfortable with, right? And so there's different types of methods. There's like, for example, you can put the chair next to the crib, and you're next to the baby at all times, right? So you're not leaving your baby there crying by themselves. You are sitting right there, and you're letting your baby know, I am here right next to you, right? There's also the check-in methods, right? This one I had to play with my oldest because this one was just not anything like gentler, was not working at all. So this one is, putting her in a crib, she would cry. I would let her cry for like 3 minutes and then go back in. You're okay. Mommy's here, go back to sleep, and then
That's
just
right.
on
Yeah.
and off until she finally fell asleep. But she always saw me. I was always there to comfort her. I never left her alone, right? And that is what I felt comfortable with. There's some parents that even then is still too rough for them. So they don't choose that method. They choose the one, the camping out, right? Putting a mattress next to the bed and just slowly taking the mattress out as the process goes.
This is I feel that parents doing that are very much hostage of their children. I always look at them like
Yeah, it is.
it's I think this is a little off the edge for parents. It's not sustainable long term, honestly, because now your child is waking up and peeking on you, you're not there, and it's all over again. We're back to, and the cortisol level just gonna rush in your baby's body, which can take up to 6 hours to get down. That means that you're gonna end up with a baby who wakes up very anxious again. So I would
Yeah, yeah.
never.
So that's what happens. Like, that, like I said, depends on what method you're using. Because that's what happens when the baby gets used to sleeping in your arms or sleeping with you. And then suddenly you put them in the crib, and then they wake up, and it's like, imagine yourself falling asleep in your room and then suddenly waking up in the living room. You're gonna be freaked out.
That's right. Yes.
You will be freaked out. So if you choose, if you do decide, because at the end of the day, if what you're doing works for you and the baby's sleeping and the baby's safe and you're safe and it's working for you and, everybody's good and healthy, keep doing what you're doing, right? But if it's not and it's affecting you, the baby, the family, the dynamic, whatever it is, then yes, get some type of help. And at the end of the day, just having a simple routine helps a lot because it gives the baby the cues. Yeah.
Routine, absolutely. It's gonna take time. It doesn't happen from a day to another, because your child is new to this world and needs to understand what is being established for him or her. But indeed, yes, promoting safety, having this routine so they really
Yeah.
know.
And it helps their internal clock to develop in a way that is like, oh, swaddle, okay, it's time to go to sleep, or it's sleeping sack, time to go to sleep. Because if the baby's like learning how to go to sleep with like while feeding, when they're hitting the next sleep cycle and they wake up, they don't know how to go back to sleep because they are expecting to be fed to be able to go back to sleep. So then you have kind of like a clutch right
It's a
there.
vicious
Yeah.
circle. Yeah.
And so that's the reason a lot of babies tend to wake up, because they have um this what's it called? This clutch that makes them dependent, whether it's the mom, whether it's the pacifier, whether it's the bottle, whatever it is. If they don't have it, then they can't go to sleep. And so that is when you start running into a lot of sleep issues. And just like mine fell asleep in my arms because of the reflux. And then later on, when she was able to fall asleep, she couldn't because she didn't know how to, right? And so that is the reason why we picked the check-in method with her. And by the second night, she was already sleeping. 15 minutes in, she got to fall asleep, no problem.
Can you imagine the relief it must have been for your daughter as well? Because we often talk about, how, and I think this is where the mother's guilt comes from as well. It's from the fact that mother thinks they're doing that for themselves, not for the benefit of the children. But can you imagine the relief of your little girl to know that she can now fall asleep without panic attacks, without this anxiety, without having to freak out each time that you walk away? This is a true blessing for her. She auto regulates herself, and now she's feeling safe around herself, right? So benefits of sleep training, right? It's just want to put the emphasis on that.
Yeah. And another one is like a lot of, you will hear in social media that supposedly if you do sleep training, your attachment to your child is not going to be there. And that is complete opposite, because imagine if you're sleep deprived and your child doesn't stop crying, you're not going to have a good attachment with the baby. You're going to be resentful, but at a certain point, because your body needs that rest, right? And if you're aggravated, you're annoyed or whatever, your attachment to the baby is not going to be healthy, it's not going to be there. But instead, if you're rested, the baby's rested, the toddler's rested, the kid is rested,
That's right.
it's going to be a more dynamic. Let me tell you something. I sleep trained both of my girls, both two different methods. And these girls are so attached to me that, everybody tells you like, oh, the girls are all about dads. No, like these girls are very much attached. And it's because kids, what they need is you, and what they need is time with you. And if you're able to dedicate, the time to be with them,
and quality time, right?
that quality time, like not screen time, no shaming on that, because let me tell you something, like we all need that 5 minutes to be able to cook or whatever it is, or just be able to have a nice meal without like having screams. So I get it. Just it's just a matter of balance, like I don't understand, like I stop shaming parents for that, because there's times that like my husband's like, let's go out to dinner. It's like, okay, but I'm already so over like the day that I have Miss Rachel on the go.
Miss Rachel.
Miss Rachel saves the day.
Miss Rachel has raised an entire generation. No joke.
Mm-hmm.
Miss Rachel, she knows her babies. They know her, they love her, she knows her babies. I saw a comment on TikTok saying that everybody owes her child support. I love that.
Yes, she has changed so many's life. She has, it is amazing what she has done and what she continues doing. And, but yeah, so that the whole shaming parents of like, oh my God, look at them. They're eating and they're letting their kids listen. There's a balance to everything. We don't know what's going on in their life. We don't know what type of day the parent have. We don't know, if the child actually needs that at that moment, because we don't know if they have some type of disability or X, Y, and Z. We don't know, to be pointing fingers and judging and making somebody else feel bad. And the crazy thing about that is like the other day I am catching myself to stop apologizing for my kids being kids. And the other one is to stop trying to explain myself to people that nobody needs an explanation from you, right? And the same thing when it comes to sleep training. Like, at the end of the day, you need to figure it out if that's what you and your family needs. And if that is what you need, then please get it, because you need your rest, you need your sleep, your kids need it. And for example, if you do have a child with a disability, when the child is actually overstimulated, overtired, and overwhelmed and sleep deprived, therapies do not go as well. They actually have a harder time to be able to meet certain milestones. Even kids that don't have any type of disabilities, they tend to also not be able to hit certain milestones, or it delays them to hit certain milestones because their bodies are not able to recover and to help their hormones to be balanced and for them to have a better immune system, so on and so forth. So there's like so many different health benefits that come from sleep, and to help them develop in the way that they need to be able to develop, that is important for you as a parent and for them as kids.
Absolutely. Thank you for putting making sure that everybody understood that very clearly, because indeed, once again, we mentioned before, there are very serious cases of sleep deprivation, and it's sometimes we need people like you who have extensive experience to remind of people that of to people, and thank you for that. um I want to ask you, I know you are also, wait, let's go back to also the postpartum part. So we talked about, so the pre-pregnancy, during the pregnancy, I mean, during, after delivery. And what about postpartum? What is the program that you have for mothers there?
For mothers specifically.
Yeah.
So I like to give a specific, like, to cater my personalized plans to them, because there are some moms that could be going through postpartum depression. Um, there's some moms that can start developing postpartum rage, postpartum anxiety. And so how can you deal with that? How can you deal with those moments that you literally, want to have, like my therapist has called it, an adult tantrum, because that literally happens, that you just want to also scream. And that's when parents start hitting their kids. That is when parents start screaming at their kids and things like that. So what I do is cater the program to the specific needs to the mom and what they're going through at that moment. And now what I'm also implementing into Mindful Mother is that my best friend, she's a licensed therapist, family and marriage therapist, and I wanted to include her in this, into Mindful Mother, because I want to be able to make sure that I am giving the resources and tools to moms that need a deeper level of help, that I may not be able to give, right? So for example, as a life coach, I cannot diagnose you whether you have postpartum depression or not, but I can definitely, if you have been diagnosed, hey, listen, look, there is breathing work that we can work on. There is, how can you be mindful during the day, so that way you can actually be able to enjoy that time with your kids, instead of worrying about, I don't know, like, there's sometimes that the anxiety crawls in, that your house is not clean. How can you deal with that type of, anxiety? Your kids are screaming nonstop. What are things can you do that you can help be able to calm down before you explode, right? Because at the end of the day, when you're going through all of these emotions, you're just a ticking time bomb.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then you feel bad because you yelled at your kids, or because you made them cry, or because whatever it is. And then you realize that it wasn't fair, because at the end of the day, you're the adult, you're supposed to have and it's unfortunate that us millennials and anybody else after us, that we are trying to learn ourselves how to self-regulate and how to educate ourselves emotionally, right, and mentally, that we're doing it while we're also raising the little ones and helping them how to learn those type of tools. So there's times that I just want to literally scream with the toddler, just because she just doesn't stop. Mama, 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 nonstop, like Finding Nemo birds, like nonstop. And I just stop. I take a deep breath, until I, like, couple deep breaths, until I finally, put my hand on my chest. And these are the type of techniques that I teach my clients, so that way they can calm themselves down and be able to handle the situation. Because at the end of the day, if you're a calm adult, you're able to raise calm kids,
Absolutely.
right? If you're yelling at your kids, most likely your kids are going to end up yelling. If you're hitting your kids, most likely the kids are going to start hitting, whether it's you, whether it's somebody else, whatever it is. And so all of these type of traits and things that we have from our own childhood, and we're bringing it on to the next, being mindful of these things, it will help you with your postpartum journey. I don't know if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense.
And
Yes.
so, and part of it, like, for example, there's sometimes like, oh my God, Maria, like, I don't know what to do, for an easy meal, or, for example, I like using my sister as an example because there's sometimes I love her. She's a hot mess half the time, but she's like, Maria, I don't know what to do. Like, should I give Felipe like his bottle or should I feed him right away? I don't know. Am I a bad mom if I just feed him right away and not give him his bottle? And I'm like, first of all, congratulations, you're feeding your kid. Good job. And I'm pretty sure you changed his diaper, right? And have that type of person. And then she does the same thing to me that she's like, oh my God, look at you. You got up and you dressed your girls, like, and so having that type of person,
celebrating the small things. And yeah,
and the craziest
exactly.
thing is like when you're having the worst day or you think that you're having the worst day or the worst moment is usually the best time for the kids because you are feeding them, because you're spending time with them, because you're making sure that whatever their needs are met. But internally, you thought that you screamed at your kid or that you just like whatever panic at the moment, and then you realize, hey, I was able to get them here. And then you ask a kid, like, how was your day? Oh, well, mommy took me here and then she made this meal and then I was able to help her. And there was milk everywhere, but it's okay because I was able to help her clean, and it wasn't the mess that was important to them, is the fact that they were able to spend time with you and they were able to help you. So
Yes.
it's a beautiful journey. It is a challenging one, especially if you don't have support. And I like to be able to bring that type of support and those type of tools to anybody that works with me.
What would you say to any woman out there listening to us that is thinking about reaching out to you?
You are welcomed here. I never want to make you feel judged or feel like you should be ashamed. I always like to be able to hear and hear you out, because there's sometimes that we only need 8 minutes for somebody to just listen and not try to fix us, because at the end of the day, no, we don't need to be fixed. We need to be able to have support. And so be proud of what you're doing day by day. You were able to get up from bed, do what you needed to do. If you're a mom, you're able to get up and be able to change your kids, put them in the school bus and be able to give them an education, or feed your kids, or even put a clean diaper, or whatever it is that you think it's insignificant. It's something very important that you should give yourself credit for, because especially us as women, we forget the value that we bring. We forget the amazing things that we do on a daily basis, on an hourly basis. That to-do list, girl, good for you. You're doing a to-do list because you know that you need to be able to do something tomorrow, and you're doing that to-do list because you want to make sure that it's done. Just by you doing a to-do list, good for you, because you're just trying to make it and you're making it. So be proud of you. And if anybody's making you feel down, that person probably shouldn't be around you. You need people to bring you up. You need people to support you, and make sure you try to set those boundaries, because you deserve respect. You deserve your time, and make sure you get that rest.
Wow, that was very powerful, Maria. Really. I'm not a mom, but I felt it. It's I can only imagine mothers out there because we don't champion mothers enough. This was a great conversation. I'm beyond happy that you decided to sit with us today, with me and with the listeners of 60 Minutes with a Woman. It's honestly a privilege to have people dedicating their time and energy to bettering the life of mothers. It's about time that they get the representation and once again the celebration they deserve, and more even than that, the help that they need. Thank you so much, Maria, for being here today. I'm going to add Maria's information in the description down below. Make sure, please, to hit her up and contact her, have a first conversation, see where that takes you. She's formidable if you haven't noticed already, and very knowledgeable and very devoted. This is the kind of person, the kind of professional you want to be working with. Thank you so much,
No,
Maria.
thank
Thank you
you so
again.
much for having me, and thank you for everybody that's listening. I hope it was helpful, and I hope you're able to feel seen, um, because we all deserve that type of feeling. So thank you again. Um, I really appreciate this time.
And that brings us to the end of today's episode. Until next time, stay bold, stay brilliant, and keep building your own success story. If you loved what you heard, be sure to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with someone who needs to hear it.